I'm not always calm. I'm not, but trying to remember, these things because, right, like you're saying, sometimes travel, there's these getting to a place can bring up stress, right? And then again, just trying to, I use a lot of breathing techniques. I teach clients and I practice them myself.
Hi, I'm Kim Tolson and I'm the traveling therapist. It's my passion to teach therapists how to navigate online private practices and multiple income streams so they can travel the world. I'm a digital nomad with a virtual insurance-based private therapy practice and a multi-six-figure coaching business. I'm obsessed with entrepreneurship and developing tools that can help therapists live an adventurous lifestyle. In this podcast, I will discuss my journey as a digital nomad. I'll chat with other traveling therapists and help you navigate the complexities of running an online insurance-based practice. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey. Building a private practice can be challenging. I know for me, when I was starting out, I had no idea how to get referrals. I had no idea how to manage paperwork. I knew nothing about insurance billing. The whole process was really daunting. Building a private practice can be challenging, to say the least. I remember when I was starting out, I had no idea how to get referrals. I had no idea how to navigate insurance. I had no idea even what paperwork was required. So growing a caseload, navigating insurance, and managing billing and paperwork all take significant amounts of time. And that's all in addition to delivering great care to your clients. That's why Alma gives clinicians the tools they need to build a thriving private practice. When you join their insurance program, you can get credentialed within 45 days and access to enhanced reimbursement rates. They also handle all the paperwork from eligibility checks to claim submissions, and they guarantee payment within 2 weeks of each appointment. So in addition to their insurance program, Alma also offers time-saving tools and administrative support, so you can spend less time on paperwork and more time delivering great care to your clients and traveling the world. Learn more about building a thriving private practice with Alma at helloalma.com/Kim. That's helloalma.com/KYM to get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Traveling Therapist Podcast. Super excited today. I found this guest in my Facebook group. She was posting about special type of psychotherapy that she specializes in and mentioned that she's a traveler. So I was like, oh my gosh, you need to come on my podcast. I'm really excited to learn more about this. Her name is, I'm going to mess this name up, Michal Cohen. Did I get that right? Very close. Mihael. Oh my gosh. I practiced that like 3 times, you guys, before I hit record. I still messed. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. The first question I always ask is, how did you go from being just a traditional therapist to a traveling therapist? Yeah, well, first of all, Kim, thank you so much for having me on here. It's a super exciting opportunity. For me, really was a little bit before COVID. I started to vision being an online therapist. Wow, I would be able to work from anywhere if I was an online therapist. And I was a little bit wasn't really looking into it. It's just kind of an idea. And COVID, that became the reality for, so many people. Once I made that, change, it really, didn't make sense to ever go back to the office for a lot of different reasons. That was sort of like, wow, I could work from anywhere now. And to me, being an online therapist gives you so much freedom. And freedom is my biggest values in life. That's why I love working for myself. And, so it's almost like that next step. Wow, you can work from anywhere. And I've always loved to travel. So it just sort of was like, cha-ching, like. I love it. I totally get it. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I first realized that, I was like, oh my God, a whole new world of opportunities has just opened up for me. It's so amazing. And I'm with you with like the freedom piece, I never wanted to have a boss. I never wanted to have rules. I want to be able to just do it how I want to do it. And, being able to be a traveling therapist is so cool. We can just go anywhere. So you were sharing with me before we hit record that are you in Honolulu right now? Is that like your home base is Honolulu? Yeah. Yeah. I've been there for
12 years. And
Oh, that's awesome. And you had mentioned you had family or you're back from the East Coast, I guess. Are you licensed in Hawaii or are you licensed like somewhere back on the East Coast? Like, I'm just curious how that works for you right now.
well, yeah, I am licensed in Hawaii and I'm also licensed like in Pennsylvania and I'm also licensed in California, Utah, and Florida right now. So kind of, I've been
Oh,
expanding the licensure. Have more
it's kind of
possibilities,
exciting.
right?
Yeah. How's that going? Do you have like clients in each state or like how is that tough to manage all that different states and the licensure?
Well, mostly I'm primarily still attracting clients for Hawaii and I'm still kind of working. I just recently got licensed in California and that was a huge endeavor. Now I'm kind of going to be looking at how to, market to California, and that's kind of the new place I'm in with in terms of expanding my practice.
So maybe we should get into the type of therapist you are so people can know what you do. Because I'm really excited to talk about the specialty that you have. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a psychedelic therapist, and what does that mean? And I'm not an underground therapist, so I just work with substances that are currently legal. So for Hawaii right now, that is cannabis. If somebody has a cannabis card, because here you need a medical, and ketamine. And both of those are a little bit different in terms of them. If somebody's interested in psychedelic cannabis journey, that's about a 3-hour experience where I'm doing a ceremony with somebody where they're imbibing cannabis with the ceremony. Then there's a meditation, and then there's a guided list where they're kind of going on their own journey, and I'm there supporting them through that. And usually we'll have sessions pre and post to preparing for it, and then post sessions integrating what's come up. And then I also work with ketamine, and the ketamine is really cool because either a person go to a medical clinic, which I have relations with, and get ketamine there where they're medically monitored, or they can also get ketamine lozenges, which they can do at home. And so, yeah, so the cool thing about that is I will work with somebody if they're doing it in the office. I work with them a lot and prepare for that to get them ready. It can happen in an altered state, and so then working with them after that experience. Sometimes when you're in an altered state, we just get different messages from different parts of ourselves. Sometimes it's for a reason, and sometimes the altered state lets those defenses relax a little bit so that another part of us we can kind of connect with that part of us. And so a lot of times with any psychedelic experience, a big part helping a person integrate what got from that experience. And that's what I love, supporting people in that process.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. So how in it?
Have you ever had an experience with being in an altered state?
Yeah, well, yeah, but not like in a therapeutic mindset, college, that sort of thing, but never like through a therapeutic process. I mean, I've heard about it, but I always wondered how do therapists even do you have to be certified? Or is it like, what is the process for somebody that would be interested in doing something like this? I'm so curious about it.
Yeah, that's a good question. There are so many programs right now, and and that in of itself be like, how do you find the right fit? I feel like I got very just blessed. I was doing a training for ganja yoga to yoga with and during that training, Dean DeSalt, who is the founder of that, said, guys, there's an event that actually are going on a cannabis journey, and it just so happens that's happening during our training, and we're going to go to it. And I am a fan of cannabis. It's actually something that helps me with my own mental health. And I was lucky enough to be connected here with a doctor, working with him, and he did the cards. So I was already in mental health. And when I went on this journey, I couldn't believe the experience I had. It was so profound. Yeah, because when you do cannabis in a ceremony and somebody is guiding you in that way, it's very intentional and it's very different than if you're just kind of using cannabis at home. And I wouldn't have believed, like my teacher, Daniel McQueen he's based in Boulder, Colorado. It's called medicinal mindfulness. He will say things like, you can have a similar experience to psilocybin with cannabis or ayahuasca. And I wouldn't have believed that. I felt in that first ceremony too. And that that opened me up to saying, I need to take this training to, take this. So that kind of opened me up to that world. And then I would say simultaneously too, I found Gabor Mate, who has written a number of books, and I decided to do this was right before COVID. I decided to do his training program in modality compassionate inquiry. And Gabor has worked with psychedelics, and he is, very outspoken about using them, in different ways. And so that program is not specifically for working, but many people in that program are practitioners, and the model so beautifully. So that's kind of was my road to getting into this type of work. Those two trainings, I really felt, understanding, coming from a trauma approach, really Gabor specialist, really understanding early trauma and how it show up in someone. And how do you hold that for someone and give them that space to maybe feel what they've been pressing down or suppressing, right? In a way that allows what needs to unfold to unfold. So that was kind of and I mean, I'm just going to be on, I'm always working on my own healing, right? And that's what I want to from just to normalize that a lot of it, our parents always did their best. Sometimes there's things, needs that didn't get met, right? And then how is that maybe showing up in life today? And just to, I look, because Gabor's been on his healing journey and he shares with it. And so kind of that's where I've come from in this work of just like having journeys myself, which is part of the training with medicinal mind. You're going on journeys. My healing has just been exponential from those experiences. Wow. That's my why of it's helped me, and it's and so that's kind of why I'm doing this work.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. Yeah, I've had clients that have been through experiences like that, and they've talked about the same thing, how transforming it was and how years of therapy work just happened in hours, with ceremonies like this. It's super interesting. So the ketamine piece, I get the cannabis, but the ketamine piece is sort of new for me too. So especially you being a traveling therapist and then trying to do this stuff remotely with people and, maybe even being licensed in my state, I just wonder, I guess there's different laws in different states and how you can help people do this type of therapy. I guess I'm just wondering, like, how does that all come together for you? And then when we add the traveling piece into it, like, how do you do this stuff remotely? Because I know you travel and I want to talk about that too, but I'm super curious about how that all goes together,
Yeah. So the ketamine, the beautiful thing about ketamine is that a lot of the work is the pre-journey and the post-journey. Because sometimes with ketamine, and not everyone's experience, but you're not always in a place when you're on that journey. But I also, the clinic that I refer people to, there's somebody sitting in with them if they're doing the journey there.
Yeah.
In terms of being a traveling therapist, I can still meet with that client from anywhere I am to talk about preparing the journey, and still meet with them anywhere. We try to meet the day after the journey, because that's when is the best time to kind of integrate what came and process that. And so you want to just be very intentional with scheduling to make sure that you can line everything up in the time way. And another beautiful thing with ketamine is if somebody is doing ketamine loss, which they're a lot more affordable than, say, going into the office for a treatment where you're getting IM. And that's I love offering that option to people because not everyone can afford the in-office treatment, right? Beautiful thing about lozenges is depending on sometimes people take a lower dose, sort of like a lubricant for talk therapy. But he might be in a little altered state, just a little bit more relaxed, and we're able to talk through things without maybe so many defenses coming up, right? And so that's another that as a traveling therapist, like people can be at home, and which is a lot of times, people feel safest in their own home to be in an office. A lot of times that appeals to somebody. And a lot of times too, not come to me because they want to do ketamine, but then it's something, if I see what's going on, it might be an intervention that I suggest, right? And so we just kind of work together in that way. And that's the beautiful thing about a traveling therapist, that you can work with that from anywhere,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I wasn't sure how that went, but I can see. So somebody who's there with them monitoring, especially with the IM ketamine, because my understanding ketamine is probably off, but when I think of it, I think it's like this heavy duty tranquilizer that knocks you out. But I'm sure there's like obviously lower doses where you can like function and like you're saying, even use it as a lubricant with the oral ketamine to help with therapy. That's so interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly what you're saying. There's different thresholds with ketamine, and I mean that thing is like collaborating with a doctor, right? That is doing that medical piece and the dosage piece, and that's it's true, right? There can be a dose where you're feeling kind of out of your body somewhat because it is kind of a dissociative, or then when somebody gets comfortable with certain places, then you can kind of go a little bit higher and explore kind of these different realms that ketamine can take you to, or you can just keep it at a lower and kind of just use it in that way. So there's lots of different ways to with the dosing, and that's why I love collaborating with the doctor, them do that part, and me doing my processing and the therapy part.
So is it different? I guess every state's probably got different rules around like the cannabis and the ketamine and whether you can or can't offer that modality. I'm guessing, is that right for the different states? Oh, okay.
Yeah. A lot of states now, cannabis is completely legal. So a lot of places people may not even need the doctor's recommendation. So that opens that up a lot.
That's cool. That's super interesting. Yeah. Oh God, I feel like I could just ask you questions about this all day. So I'm like, what strain did they get? Where did they get it? How do you know what's the right thing for them? But maybe we should just talk about your traveling and like how have you made this work? I know before we hit record, you mentioned 5 weeks in Mexico and just all these different things that you're doing. So maybe we can just shift it a little and talk about like how you're managing that as a traveling therapist, being stationed or your home base in Honolulu, but expanding out to other countries and stuff. How's that going for you? How does that work?
It's going beautifully. Thanks for asking about that, because I have always been a traveler. I grew up in a family where actually my mom was on an extended trip to Israel when she was in her 30s, and that's how she met my mother. So I grew up with love of travel being a value in my family, and we always took family. And so, earlier in my career, I had just felt like saddened by not being able to go on big trips, because I'm someone who I don't want to just go for a week. I want to really like get a sense of a place. And so, with being a traveling therapist, like in May, I was in Mexico for 5 weeks, and I mean, the only way that I can make that work is to work traveling. And
Yeah.
and then like the amazing thing about working for yourself is that you can stack more people in one day if you want to have another day of not seeing anyone, and kind of or, maybe, vary your schedule in a way so you're still getting to maximize what you want to do while you're traveling. And so that has worked. In Mexico, it was really seamless because I made sure, check internet. There's some places in Mexico where you'll read, oh, the internet's not so good here. And so I chose not to go to those places and kind of, I know there's ways you can bring your own, but I haven't advanced to that place yet. So I'm just kind of I just go to places where the reviews are solid. And as long as there's solid internet, and that, it's just so empowering to work from anywhere.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
I'm so grateful for what I do and the ability to just I just need a computer. And
yeah, exactly. It's just unbelievable. So when you go like Mexico or wherever and you look for good internet, are you staying in like Airbnbs, or are you like, what type of accommodations do you look for that makes it easier for you to be able to work and see your clients and still live,
Going in network with insurance can be tough. For example, waiting a year to get credentialed in some cases. Filing all of the right paperwork is time consuming and tedious, and even after you're done, it can take months to get credentialed and start seeing clients. That's why Alma makes it easy and financially rewarding to accept insurance. When you join the insurance program, you can get credentialed within 45 days and access to enhanced reimbursement rates. They also handle all the paperwork, from eligibility checks to claim submissions, and they guarantee payment within 2 weeks of each appointment. Once you've joined Alma's insurance program, you can see clients in your state of licensure, regardless of where you're working from. This is particularly exciting for me as a traveling therapist, as I know it is probably for you too. You can literally be anywhere and still see your clients through Alma. Learn more about building a thriving private practice with Alma at helloalma.com/Kim. That's helloalma.com/KYM to get started.
Yeah, either Airbnbs or hotels that are pretty reasonably priced. So like Mexico, I stayed in both, like some hotels, some Airbnbs. And that's the great thing about Airbnbs too, right? You can say, what's your internet connection like? And kind of, it's like, it's just like very similar to going on a psychedelic journey. You have to plan and prepare. And I'm not always the best planner. ADHD over here, but that's also been helping me with ADHD, is to appreciate planning, right? Because planning just sets you up for not having stress, that you don't want to wait last minute to check the internet speed, right? So I've been a lot intentional. If I wasn't a traveling therapist, I wouldn't be looking into like the internet speed. Now I'm very intentional when I'm looking at where I'm going to stay. That's kind of the number one factor, because it's to work that travel the way I want to travel. So I always keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super important. And then even sometimes when you check the internet, you get there and it's not nearly what they promised it was going to be. Like we've had that happen a couple of times. So it can be a little disconcerting when you get to where it actually isn't functioning very well. But I've talked about this in other episodes, just, trying to find other options like public libraries or, just places where you can still get a secure connection, because it can be really stressful. You get somewhere and realize we're not going to be able to work.
That's the biggest stress ever. That's great. Like when you have kind of, it's like, what am I going to do? I got to figure something out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We just landed in the Dominican Republic this week for 7 weeks. So we're still trying to figure out the internet, the rolling power outages, all that stuff that you really don't think about. But like you're talking, just like trying to plan ahead a little bit to learn about some of that stuff that might happen and just being prepared for it in case, something comes up, trying to have a backup plan at least. Yeah, and we're still learning. We're like perfecting our list right now. It's like, okay, we didn't bring a Wi-Fi extender on this international trip. Usually we have one with us, but we don't have one. So it's all these little things that we're kind of learning along the way that we need to have to make, you know, make this go more smoothly. It's a constant learning experience. I don't know if it is for you, but for us, that's what we found so far.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's anything with travel is kind of a constant learning experience, right? And I think I haven't ventured out yet to certain countries where internet might not be what I would want. And that will probably be my next area of exploration, because there's some places in Africa I really want to get to, and just right and just so yeah, I mean, that's going to be my next piece of like what are all the tools you need to have with you to kind of ensure if you want to make sure you have the solid internet connection, like things like Starlink. I heard people, but I haven't really researched it yet.
Yeah, that seems to be a really good option for people. Right now, we've got this thing called a Solus. It's like this little orange dot that like connects to different cell towers wherever you are. And we've actually got it enabled right now because my boyfriend, his uh, phone plan doesn't work in the Dominican Republic. So he's having to just run it off that hotspot, like when wherever we're out walking around and stuff. He just puts it in his pocket and it's really helpful. But it doesn't work everywhere very well. So it really is trial and error for all that stuff. And I've heard that about Starlink, that it's really good, especially for the RVers and, you know, all of that. So it's so interesting. Isn't it all the stuff we can do? We have to figure out.
Yes. I love that now you've built a community around people being able to share, collaborate with what works and what doesn't, right? And I think that's the cool thing about being, you know, what you've offered for traveling therapists is community.
Yes.
Express it.
Be able to ask, like, what do you guys do in this situation? It helped me too, because this is really our first extended international trip. And we've gone places for like 2 weeks and, you know, a while, but this is first, like, we're here 7 weeks. So this is like brand new to us too, you know? So I've been in my own group, like asking questions and trying to reach out just to get answers about some of this stuff. So how do you manage like the visa process, and do you try to stay places just like shorter? That's okay. Got a little coughing going on. I get it.
Yeah. So the visa process, I haven't come into any challenges yet because I haven't gone anywhere where it's been a needed. Um, yeah, it's like needed that longer stay. Just prior to being a traveling therapist, I did have an interesting experience with going to Pakistan, where you get a visa ahead of time, and it's a little. It's that I don't know if you want me to go into that, but that was an interesting experience.
I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So, this is probably like around 2004, and a very dear friend of mine is from Pakistan, and she just invited me to go with her. This was actually when I was in school getting my degree in social. It happened to just, I don't know, it was not long after the time that Daniel Pearl had been, I don't know, he was a journalist, and I'm British. My father's family is from Afghanistan, so like that part of the world really calls to me. And so my friend's dad worked at the UN, seemed like a very safe way to go with her. And even though there was a travel warning for America to go to Pakistan, so I went with my friend, checked into the hotel, and everything seems okay. And then the next day, the hotel says to me, "You need to go to the American embassy." I'm like,
oh my gosh.
Right. And I was like a little nervous. Well, you don't say no to that. So I went to the embassy, and there's a man sitting across from me. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And he had a map behind him with all these push pins. And you know what those push pins stand for? Terrorist, possible terrorist. And don't you know there's a travel warning here? And he was, you know, and then I was I just was explaining to him how this opportunity came and why I was there. And I was there with someone from there. She's showing you around. And then this guy really happened. And then by the end of our meeting, he was like, well, let me show you how to get a carpet here. I'm going to take you to, I'm going to take you to a very special store. So we ended up like dating, and I got this beautiful carpet, and it was an interesting experience.
That is wild. Yeah. I mean, yeah, those are things to really look at, the travel warnings, because almost a lot of countries you look at, there are travel warnings for different things, like safety warnings, and I think even here in the Dominican Republic, there were a few, like American safety or checking that beforehand. So it can be, I mean, you could be walking into stuff. I know, I don't remember what year it was. We went to Nicaragua, where my brother-in-law at the time was from. And when we got off the plane, there were riots going on in the street, like political uprising in this. Like as soon as we entered into Managua, and I was like, oh my God, there were police, and our hotels were shut down, and it was terrifying. But of course, he spoke Spanish because he was from Nicaragua, so he was able to navigate that for us. But we had no warning. So sometimes, I mean, that's such a good point. Sometimes you get into places and you just don't even realize how what it could be like. And then it's like, oh, gosh, what do you do with that? So it's just, I guess it's good to say that just out loud, check the safety warnings and make sure you know what's happening in a country before you decide to go there, because you just never know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think exactly. Check the political climate, and with looking at warnings, sometimes it'll only be certain regions of the country, right? So it's just because with Mexico, so many people were like, oh, be careful when you go to Mexico, and all this stuff. And it's just if I was going to Chicago, there's certain neighborhoods I'm not going to walk around, and right, but we don't say don't go to Chicago. So it's sort of like this thing of okay, if somebody's giving you that message, where are they come, and are you be smart, and you do. I think it's important, especially if you're a woman traveling alone. You want to know what neighborhoods are okay to go to, and other ones might not be okay. And it's important to know all these things. I think that's part of kind of the planning and preparation of just, let's get a sense of the political climate. Let's get a sense of, I have a friend who's in New York right now. She's a travel agent, and there's a travel warning there. She was invited by people in the government to, travel agents were invited to show, hey, these are the places that are okay and welcoming, right? Wow. So yes, kind of always, being aware and looking at safety and making that feel for you.
I love that. That's such an important point. We just, in the traveling therapist membership, every week I have a different expert that comes in and talks, and she's basically a professional international traveler. So she goes from country to country for extended periods of time. And we were talking about that very same thing. And she had a good tip. She was like, I always go to a place and I rent a hotel near the city center for the first 3 days or something. And then I decide where I want to stay for the extended stay. Just, she likes to get out and walk around and feel the city and make sure, because you can't really always tell. An Airbnb might look awesome, but you get there and it's like, oh my God, this is scary. This is a bad neighborhood. So that was a little tip she gave. I thought that was super helpful. It's okay, she just goes in and then walks the streets and says, this feels safe. I'm going to get an Airbnb right here. I thought that was really smart.
I love that idea.
Yeah. That's so smart. So yeah, just that out there since we're talking about it, because I was like, I'm just going to do that from now on, because we just got here in the Dominican Republic and we booked the place for 7 weeks, but we got there and we were like, this is not going to work. And we actually had to leave the Airbnb, which we don't ever do that, but it turned out that way. We're like, gosh, we don't even know where to go. So I was like, we need to start doing that. We're going to start doing that. When we get to a place, we're going to feel it out and then decide where we want to stay for a month or whatever. Yeah. So.
Well, the place you're in now looks beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I would have to show you. I've got this fake background on behind me, but yeah, we're just overlooking the ocean right now, and it's perfect. It worked out great because we got an even better place. But yeah, I just felt that was a super helpful tip, and I think we'll probably do that from now on, just for like land and then figure out where to go, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna start thinking about doing really smart because yeah, you can only learn so much before you get to a place. And then yeah, that's a great tip.
Exactly. Yeah. So let me know how if that goes okay for you. I mean, 'cause most there's like 1,000 Airbnbs you can choose from, even up to that date when you're there. So like this one, we booked it in within an hour after having to leave the other one, and it worked out fine. So just side note for the other traveling therapists listening out there. So, what is there anything you've learned along your way that you think would be helpful to people listening, or any tips or suggestions or anything like that that might be helpful?
I think what helps me is to kind of try and keep the mentality of being on an adventure. And
Wow, I
because
love that.
all kinds of things can happen. Like I mean, when I was in Mexico last year, we got to the airport for one of our flights, and it's like, oh, the air shut down, volcano,
Mm,
and and I think this is also part of therapy is in a way, how do we react when things don't go our own way, right? And
mm,
so I bring stuff from my travels too into therapy, right? Because it's like always about how are we reacting when something doesn't go our way to
yeah,
look at. And I think in that situation it was like, on one hand you can be angry and frustrated, but on the other hand you could just accept that sometimes things happen and you have to adjust and make a new plan and try to look at the adventure of that. Like then I ended up taking this like 8-hour bus ride and got beautiful countryside. And luckily it was a weekend, so I didn't have to cancel clients. But at the same time, right, there's times where like I got COVID a few months ago and I had to cancel people last minute, and that's sometimes right. So is unpredictable. And I try to um there's no guarantees in life. So how can we approach things with a sense of adventure? And because if you're just going to be like angry that you have to take the 8-hour bus ride, like then you're not gonna have fun with the bus ride. Versus if
yeah,
you can approach it with a little bit of playfulness and adventure, that's going to infuse that experience. So I think for me, like trying to always look at my state of mind, because I can get frustrated about, I can get annoyed. It's like, okay, can I practice, another way of being with the situation that I'm in right now? Because a lot of travel, the unexpected is going to happen.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Oh my gosh, I could not have said that better myself. Yeah, I mean, it's just even getting here was crazy for us, but, like you said, just try to embrace it. I mean, what can you do? It's gonna happen, adjust. We're smart people. We can figure out how to deal with this and work with this and just trying to make the best out of it, which we did. And sometimes it works out for the better when there's like roadblocks or whatever, we're finding now. Having to leave that other place and come to this place. This place is actually 10 times better. So it worked out really well in the long run, even though it was hard, like for 24 hours, you know?
yeah, right. And when things are hard, right? Like it I've had it just brought to mind for me one time when I went to Israel with my dad, and I got stopped by customs because my passport had Pakistan in it, right? And so the other I try to remind myself, like it's a work in progress of how can I be calm in this moment, right? Because I get angry and push back, right? I felt like my father's from Israel and they didn't even let him come in the room with me when I was being questioned. And in
Wow.
Israel's free, there is security. Let's just put it that way. So they weren't necessarily so friendly in how they were questioning me, right? And that's the other piece is just trying to stay calm. I'm not always calm. I'm not, but trying to remember, these things because, right, like you're saying, sometimes travel, there's these getting to a place can bring up stressors, right? And then again, just trying to, I use a lot of breathing techniques. I teach clients and I practice them myself, right? I mean, that's what I love about being a therapist is we are constantly learning tools for ourselves that we can help our clients with, because it's a journey, like wellness and healing, and right, there's all the different hacks to our nervous system, or what like ways to work with ourselves when we get into different states.
Yep.
So experience is another great way to practice these things.
Yeah, and we're pretty good with people too. So if customs is like taking us into a private room, hopefully we'll be able to be just like super friendly and build good rapport and get out of that situation easily. You would hope. Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's been really interesting. I just love learning about the ketamine and the psychedelic cannabis and all that stuff, because I didn't know a lot about it. I mean, I heard clients go through it and it was helpful, and I've seen people posting about it, but to hear that there's like a process where you could do it remotely and you can specialize in that, it's just really cool. And I think people listening to this will probably think so too. People that are really into that sort of thing or want to get into it. I think this is going to be an inspiration to say that you can do that and you can travel and be anywhere and help clients that way still too. Yeah, really cool. Thank you. So
Thank you so much for having me here. It's been just great to talk to you. You're a huge inspiration to me of making your now, and that's so empowering.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for saying that. So do you work with therapists that want to get into this? Do you do coaching? I don't think I asked you that in the beginning. I don't know if you want to share a website or a way to get a hold of you. People would like to work with you.
Yeah, it's the takeatriptherapy.com, and my Instagram is the Take a Trip Therapist. And after each word, like after there's an underscore. So it's the therapist, which every word has the underscore. So those are the ways people can connect with me. And I am looking at into offering coaching. Like that's also the next piece I want to, to have more of a global reach and, learning about the ways to do that. And I love to, and this is possible for anybody, right? And that's I think what you're here to show people, like the different ways to make each person's dream a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you too. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm sure it's going to be a huge inspiration to people. Thanks a lot. So I hope you guys will reach out to her if you have questions or want to know more about the psychedelic piece or even traveling and managing all that, how she does that. So thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
You're so welcome.
Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Therapist podcast. For show notes, links, and downloads, head over to thetravelingtherapist.com, where you'll be able to learn more about my journey, the courses I've created for you, and other exciting resources to make your dreams become a reality. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share with your traveling therapist friends, subscribe to the podcast, and if you loved this episode, please leave a review.